Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Modern Maze. I am so honored to have you here, and I'm really happy to begin this journey together. To everybody who's supported me along the way, it's already been, I think, 6 months since I first thought of this idea. So, shout out to all of the support from my beautiful community. Today's episode is going to be an introduction, firstly to myself, then to the podcast, as well as some of the themes that we're going to be tackling together and the type of thinking that I want to try and cultivate here. Let's start off with me. So my name is Ari Padey. If we haven't met before, pleasure to meet you. I currently reside in Melbourne, Australia, where I've been for, I think, 16 years now. I was born and raised in the Middle East, in Dubai, and my heritage is Indian. Never lived in India, done a bit of travel there, but some future travel planned there actually, which is exciting. I have worked in the finance industry my whole professional career, and I studied a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in marketing and finance as my undergrad. During the extensive lockdowns here in Melbourne, I had a real moment to pause and reflect. Something that I began questioning and thinking to myself about was, what does my future look like? What do I want to be contributing to the world? And what interests me and what sets my soul on fire? When I thought about it deeply, something had resurfaced, a memory in particular. I would have been around 6 or 7, and I distinctly remember my mum asking me, "Aria, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I replied, "An environmental lawyer." She looked at me, a bit puzzled, I think. She asked me, "Why an environmental lawyer?" And my response was, "So I can put the bad guys in jail." A very sweet sentiment. But I think I always had this sense of stewardship of the planet and felt responsible for what was going on. However, life swept me up and I've been on my own journey, and it kind of got buried. Not that I'm ungrateful for anything in my life. I'm perfectly content and grateful for how things have gone so far. Australian nature was actually one of the biggest reasons why my family moved here. And my personal connection to nature has only increased throughout the years. And so when I was doing this reflecting, that's really what came to me was, oh, fuck, you actually really care about the earth, but life has swept you one way, so maybe it's time to honor that. These thoughts were swirling in my mind, and I believe I did some research about courses or some studies that I could do. In between the lockdowns, I had gone for a hit of tennis with a close friend, and we went out for dinner afterwards. And we began talking about our careers, our lives, what do we want to do in the future. It was one of those conversations that, when I look back at it now, I realized that it was such a turning point in my life. I couldn't even tell you exactly what we talked about during dinner or where the conversation went. All that I really remember was that I walked out of that conversation and I knew that this is the path that I need to pursue. I think the next day or a couple of days later, I enrolled into a course. It was a graduate certificate in environments, essentially a slice of a master's. So 4 subjects. If I wanted to continue my master's, I could, but I could walk away with a certificate after 4 subjects. That interested me because I saw it as an opportunity to get my foot into the door of the industry while also learning some of the most fundamental concepts. The idea that really captured my attention and all of my spare thinking time was the notion of endless economic growth. And if that leads itself or leads us to really building the world that we want and need to. This idea came into my attention when a friend recommended a book for me. He said, "This book, Donut Economics, I think you'd really enjoy it." I looked it up, seemed interesting, and I read it, and yeah, it was pretty life-changing for me. We're going to actually be discussing this book in our next episode, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. The main concept, which is the donut, essentially a framework for measuring how are we meeting societal needs within the ecological limits of the planet. That donut concept, as I was reading it, that same week at my uni, we talked about the donut. So it was a real moment of, oh wow, my personal interests are aligning with what I'm studying, what I want to do with my career, and it was a full circle moment for me. While we're going to be summarizing this book in the next episode, I would highly recommend you to check it out or have a read if that sounds interesting to you at all. But if not, don't worry, I'm going to be summarizing it. So with these thoughts in my mind, I wrote a research paper about if having a goal of endless GDP growth, endless economic growth, is sustainable, and if we can truly achieve sustainability, having that as a goal. And what I found was no, it's actually contradictory to a lot of sustainability outcomes because economic growth right now is so tied to resource and material use, which degrades our planet and has a lot of social issues attached to that as well. So following my last class, so this was during my last unit at uni, this concept is the one that really stuck with me. And it was the one that I was thinking about every day. I thought to myself, how could we truly change the world if we had this goal? And that was the first idea for this podcast. It was going to be all about endless economic growth. The name that I was workshopping was Transcending Growth. While my initial belief was that we need to change the goal of never-ending economic growth to create a ecologically safe and socially just planet, I began to ask myself if that's all that's needed. I had a few really good conversations with friends and a lot of reflection, some profound experiences, and I began asking myself, do we actually need a transformation in human consciousness to truly address ecological and social crises? Are we able to create the world of tomorrow when we have lost our intimate connection to the earth? My belief now is that we need a structural, cultural, and a spiritual transformation. I believe that we need to rediscover our deep connection to nature while also being with an economic system that supports ecological health and an equitable distribution of resources. So I believe we need both. So humans right now, instead of racing collectively towards a shared goal of a safe planet which is just for all, we have created a maze for ourselves. I believe that we have become a fragmented and distracted species. We are guided by our collective ideologies, philosophical beliefs, deepest desires, needs, and wants. We create barriers, illusions, and dead ends for ourselves forever searching for our utopia. Those were the thoughts that I had when the maze came to my mind, and the modern maze was born then. So why do we need a change? In order to continue to thrive as a species, humans need to create an ecologically safe and socially just planet. So how far away are we from building a utopia? One way of analyzing this is to look at the progress of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a shared vision adopted by all UN states in 2015. 17 goals were developed by all countries, and they aimed to eliminate extreme poverty and blend the three dimensions of sustainable development, which is economic, social, and environmental goals. While these goals are not perfect, they still paint a picture of the state of the human species and the planet. In 2023, we reached the halfway point in the agenda. We are far away from our targets. We face numerous crises such as conflict, climate change, displacement crises, economic challenges. We are in grave danger of facing prolonged periods of crisis and uncertainty, and we urgently need a significant and sudden course correction. A point that I would like to make right now is that there is plenty of impactful work being done by remarkable individuals and communities across the globe. I've had the pleasure of interacting with a few of these communities recently, and I have so much faith in humanity still, and that's something that I want to reiterate throughout this podcast, is that we don't want to just be focusing on critiquing and analyzing. We also want to bring solutions forward, and I really want to highlight all the amazing things going on. So I want to use this platform and really shout out some people. So I want to get guests on. I want to talk about good stories. I want to talk about solutions. And I will always try and make that point that it's not just about the bad things going on. So you may ask, considering the global shift towards renewable energy, international climate agreements, vast advancements in sustainable practices, and various environmental protection efforts, are we on the right path already? And is that enough? Are we doing enough? As I hope I demonstrated before, it's not enough. There are still things that we need to do and ways that we're holding ourselves back. Another complicated lens to add on to this is that something that we see as good intentioned can be complicated, and we need to think about how we are tackling these problems and what the solutions are, and consciously go about these things. Because if we're just in a mad rush and frenzy, that can lead to unintended consequences. Let me give you an example. So let's look at renewables as a case study. I hope that we can all agree that renewable energy is crucial. In summary, renewable energy is a cornerstone for a sustainable future, addressing key challenges of climate change, environmental degradation, and sustainable resource management, while offering economic and health benefits. However, because we are focused on increasing our energy consumption endlessly, this brings about unwanted consequences because we're not consciously going about this. Another question to ask is, even if we had 100% clean energy, what are we going to do with it? Unless we change how the system works, we're going to continuously extract and produce, placing increasing pressure on the environment. I read an article a few weeks ago, and it was talking about how generative AI uses so much more processing power than a normal computer process would. So as generative AI and AI in general plays a bigger role in our lives, how much more energy is required just from that? That's just a small example. But if we're continuously seeking more and more energy, when do we run out of the materials needed? How do we go about it? So, what are the impacts of renewables? I'm going to take two lenses on this, and it is something that I'm going to try and foster and cultivate, looking at social impacts and environmental impacts. I believe some of the issues that have been caused in previous years and even now are because we look at these things in isolation. But coming back to rethinking our relationship to the earth, I believe that we need to think of everything as being connected and us as being part of the earth, part of the universe, part of something bigger, not separate from it. So, socially, what are the impacts? I found this Global Slavery Index by Walk Free, which is an international human rights group, which is focused on the eradication of modern slavery. From their 2023 report, there is a specific section about renewables, and I'm going to read out some of the stats and information from it. The global renewable energy industry was valued in 2020 at 880 billion US dollars, and it is projected to grow to 1.9 trillion US dollars by 2030. So that's huge. That's a lot of money and attention and focus going into this. However, the transition to sustainable energy exposes vulnerable workers in mining, agriculture, and manufacturing to greater exploitation risks. From 2019 to 2021, nearly 200 allegations of human rights abuses were tracked in the mining of minerals that are essential for renewable energy products, including child labor and forced labor. And 200 allegations, that's the one that has been reported, right? How many more are out there that haven't been reported? The Democratic Republic of the Congo faces widespread forced labor in cobalt mining, which is a crucial mineral for renewable energy products. Solar panels are considered really high risk for forced labor, with a significant portion of the world's polysilicon supply, which is essential for solar panels, coming from the Uyghur region in China, where forced labor is prevalent. What are the environmental impacts? Clean energy technologies like wind, solar, and electric vehicles are vital for climate change, but are not without issues. They depend on critical minerals such as lithium, copper, graphite, zinc, cobalt, and nickel, which are all environmentally costly to extract. Here are some key statistics and figures that I found. Electric cars require 6 times more of these minerals than gas-powered vehicles. Over 80% of mining areas globally target materials crucial for renewable energy. More than 50 million gallons of contaminated wastewater from US mines flow daily into local water sources. Mining these minerals demands significant energy and water, which contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and waste. The extraction process affects local communities, especially in low-income or developing areas. It causes land use change, freshwater contamination and scarcity, air pollution, deforestation, and biodiversity threats. So while transitioning to clean energy is crucial, it's equally important to address its environmental and social impacts, and we need to advocate for sustainable and responsible mineral extraction processes and practices. So that is all for today. I hope that gave you a bit of a flavor and context for this podcast. Again, really grateful that you're here. Super happy to begin this journey together. Our next episode is going to be talking about the book that started it all for me, Donut Economics. And then the next episode from that will be the beginning of capitalism. So I'm going to release this episode and the following 2 episodes all at once. So please feel free to listen to them at your own leisure, of course. Also, check us out on Instagram at The Modern Maze, just one word, no capitals. I'm going to release a accompanying Instagram post with each episode that talks about the key concepts, and I'm going to look for ways to engage the community and get feedback. Would love your feedback. Any topics you'd like to see. I want to try and foster an active and collaborative community here, because I see this podcast as being our journey together. I believe that true change requires an individual effort, but also a communal effort. So thank you again for joining me today. I look forward to the next time we meet. Take care of yourself. Hope you have an incredible day. Namaste.